Paulo Vitor Damarosa. We've got numero uno, Luis Salvato, sitting there with his patented blue-white control deck here in Modern. Across from him, though, a noted pro from Europe, Emmanuel Gerschenson, has brought Grixis Death Shadow, a little bit of a throwback at this point in Modern. He's brought that thing to the table. Let's see how this plays out between the two players. Celestial Colonnade kicks things off now for Salvato, and we'll see, of course, this element of getting your life total low from Gerschenson. He's going to have the green light to do that. The deck that Luis Salvato brought really doesn't have that many ways of applying pressure to your life total. So Emmanuel is going to be able to kind of control that himself.
Yeah, and Grixis Death Shadow is one of the most complicated decks to play in the early game that you can have in Modern. It feels like playing a Legacy deck a lot of the time, because you have so many decisions. Like we look at Luis Salvato's hand. There's no decision, right? No. Anyone would play Colonnade and pass here, like regardless of. And now Emmanuel, he had so many choices already. Like he had to fetch something, and it matters what you fetch a lot. Like, do you want to take more damage? Maybe against this deck it's easier, but what if you're playing against an aggressive deck? That's a decision you have to make. Do you want to Psycho Strip Wraith before or after? Do you want to play your Bubble before? So all those micro decisions are really important.
Thoughtseize on turn one here from Gerschenson is going to take away Oust.
Yeah, Oust is a card that is very annoying against the Death Shadow deck because it kills Death Shadow by giving you life.
Yes.
So if they oust the Grimoire Gangler, then they get rid of your Grimoire Gangler, they get rid of your Death Shadow sometimes if you were at 10 life, and then on top of that you're drawing a Grimoire Gangler that you probably can't play because you just played one. So a card that we might see Snapcaster Mage by Salvato later in the game. It is very relevant.
Interestingly, both players playing Snapcaster Mage, though in much different shells, as you can see here. Mishra's Bauble is going to hit the battlefield now for Gerschenson after he plays Serum Visions. Manuel says, I'll take a look. Using the Bauble there. Now, we did see a couple of Field of Ruin in hand for Salvato. Grixis Death Shadow, definitely known for its ability to play on very few lands. Is the Field of Ruin going to be relevant?
Oh, I think so.
We see it right here.
Yeah, well, it's probably because of the Scry, because of Serum Visions. So if Emmanuel kept a card that he wanted, he had to have sacked that Bubble on his turn to draw the card during Salvato's turn. Now he's not going to. But yeah, I mean, Grixis Death Shadow is a very color-intensive deck. Like, if we look at the Legacy version of it, it plays no basics a lot of the time because it really wants to be able to cast, 2 blue spells in one turn and 2 black spells in the other. It's not even that, every spell costs 1, but you want to cast multiple of them in the same turn. So having to operate on basics only is an issue. And he has no source of red mana outside of those known basics. So he cannot get, a mountain if Salvato Field of Ruin him again.
Right, and looking at those are his 2 basics right there, Paulo.
Yeah, so every Field of Ruins from then on is Wasteland.
Okay, he's going to Thought Scour himself here. Filling up that graveyard, can we see a Grimoire Gangler perhaps? Yes, there it is.
Yeah, and he's put himself at 12 life already, so he can play Death Shadow. Yeah, so he doesn't actually play Kolaghan's Command. I think his only red cards are Lightning Bolt and Teamwork Battle Rage.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, this deck plays Kolaghan's Command a lot, but it's good for him that he doesn't in this particular game since he's stuck on 3 lands. And
Detention Sphere, though, is going to take that 5/5 right out of the equation. And, just to snapshot the game here, Salvato, he's on a cool 20 life, hasn't taken a single point of damage thus far.
Yeah, this is not really the matchup where life is the way you win the game, I think.
It tends to fall very quickly.
Yeah, you get hit by, 10, 20.
Yep.
So that is not really a big concern by Emmanuel, but I would say that his life total actually matters a lot more
than
Salvato's does. But Salvato still is in a good position because his top decks are just going to be better. So he has cards in hand, but even if he didn't,
plenty of time to do it. Now he's going to play double Death Shadow here.
Okay, and that Detention Sphere
He'd like to see another one of
looking
those.
pretty sad now.
Yeah.
I think there is only one.
Okay.
He could bounce it with Cryptic Command, but it's
That'd be interesting.
it's a long-term plan. Cryptic Command, tap your team, bounce my sphere, but then that frees up the Gurmag Angler as well. But he has Sato the Wreckage in hand, so.
Yeah, now Emmanuel knows about that settle, right? He saw that with
he
the
does.
Thoughtseize? Okay, so curious to see how he manages that. I mean, even just attacking with one Death Shadow might draw out the settle.
Yeah, you really don't want to. Obviously, you don't want to attack with both because you don't want to give your opponent the chance to settle. Oh, so
He maybe has Stubborn Denial or something?
but his Death Shadows are. Oh yeah, they're a force.
They're 4/4s, yeah. But
yeah, so that's what he must have.
no, it looks like those got in. Salvato said sure.
Yeah, and now Salvato has a land and a negate in hand. So we're going to get to a point where that Sato is probably going to define the game. Either Emmanuel attacks and only has one answer, and then it gets negated, and then his board is gone, and he probably loses the game. Or Emmanuel has another way of getting rid of it, and he will, with the Snapcaster on Thoughtseize.
On Thoughtseize, that's right.
The Thoughtseize will probably be negated, I imagine, but then if Emmanuel Gerson actually does have the
Stubborn
Stubborn
Denial.
Denial, then he's probably winning this game.
That's right. But good play there from Gerschenson to force the issue.
Yeah, Salvato can always just Miracle Terminus here, and then the game will basically be over.
Well, that's just easy mode.
Yeah.
I mean, he only has 4 of them in his list, so what are the chances, right? Let's see if he finds it. Terminus off the top here. Would be nice. He found Path to Exile.
Okay.
That does actually do something for him here. Even if Stubborn Denial ends up happening.
Yeah.
Gerschenson's going to want to play that fetch land.
Yeah, and I think he has access to Stubborn Denial and Snapcaster Mage, but only 3 lands because of the Field of Ruin. So what do you do here? I think you just have to attack and Stubborn Denial. Like, what are you? You're not going to play around another negate or a top deck Logic Knot, maybe. Like, if he attacks, then the Colonnade cannot. Yeah, there can't be a Colonnade block on the Snapcaster or anything like that because the Death Shadows are all lethal.
They would be lethal, yeah.
Since he has that fetch land there.
Gerschenson trying to figure out if he has any way to play around.
I don't think he should.
something.
Like, it is different. If he had access to another land, then he could potentially think, well, next turn I can go Stubborn Denial Snapcaster Mage, and then that will be enough. But he has to draw a land for that. I don't think he should wait.
And he decides not to either. He's going to send them all into the red zone. Before damage, though, he's going to go ahead and grab a Watery Grave to make sure this is a lethal attack and force the issue. And this is just going to be Salvato saying, okay, fine, settle the wreckage. But he knows what's coming. Gerschenson kind of telegraphed this a little earlier. And there it is, Stubborn Denial to counter it. He does have Path to Exile to kill one of the Death Shadows.
Yeah, and now we're in a spot where Salvato has one turn to top deck something.
Yeah.
If he doesn't top deck something, then Emmanuel will have access to Snapcaster or Stubborn Denial.
Ooh, another Death Shadow, too. So Terminus here would be insane.
Yeah, I don't know if he needed to
couldn't find
play that. Maybe he doesn't have a Snapcaster in hand. If he does, I don't think he should play it. But
Just Path to Exile left, though he does have Celestial Colonnade as well. Perhaps Gerschenson wanting to play out that second one to make sure that he just doesn't get chump blocked here.
yeah, but his opponent is at 3. He's fine if gets chump blocked, he hits him for 2
Sure.
with the Snapcaster Mage, and then he has Snapcaster Stubborn Denial in hand.
And he did, in fact, have that Snapcaster that you thought there, Paulo, and
Yeah.
shows it to him there and says, look, I've got Stubborn Denial at the ready, and that is going to do it for game number 1. Emmanuel Gerschenson picks up game number 1. Now, one of the, of course, big benefits to playing a deck like White-Blue Control, I can't do it. I call it blue-white control.
Yeah, doesn't everyone?
Well, that's not what the graphic says, but
Oh, well.
it's in Wooburg order, I'm being told.
Oh, I mean, I understand that, but...
Okay, well, I'll put it in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Blue-white control, and it is, of course, your sideboard, right? Not only do you have a more flexible game plan being a control deck, where some of the decks in the format really don't have those extra slots, but also you get access to some of the best sideboard cards in the whole format, which are often white.
Yeah, cards like Stony Silence, Rest in Peace, they're good against a variety of decks, and they're just I win the game type of cards against a lot of people. Not against Grixis Death Shadow, unfortunately. I think Rest in Peace is a card that is good versus Death Shadow, but it's not overwhelming. And there isn't even Kolaghan's Command in Gerschenson's list, so that's one of the cards that's really good against. So I think we're looking at Celestial Purge from Salvato's deck. He has one.
Okay.
That card is incredible against Grixis Death Shadow. He has 4 Rest in Pieces. I do not think we'll see 4. We might. I don't even know if we will see them, because they hurt 4 Grimoire Angler and 3 Snapcaster Mages.
Well, but I mean, if you're Salvato, don't you assume that you're hitting some number of Kolaghan's commands as well?
Yeah, I think you do. And you're also hitting your own 2 Snapcaster Mages and Search for Escanta. There are 2 of those. So it's not really that impactful of a card. And when you're playing a matchup that is very attrition-based, like there are a bunch of 1-for-1 counter spells, 1-for-1 discard spells, then you cannot afford to draw a card that does nothing. And Rest in Peace is a card that sometimes does nothing.
Yes.
In this deck. So even though it's fantastic against the Jund version of the deck, because it plays Charmoglyph and Traverse the Overworld, it's not that good against the Grixis version. But we might still see a couple anyway. You certainly don't want the max.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's anything in Salvato's main deck that just screams not for this matchup?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There is a card that to me screams not for any matchup, which is a card that I know other people will disagree with me. That is Hieroglyphic Illumination.
Oh, sure.
I know Luis, Scott Vargas, and Ben Stark love it, and Salvato probably likes it too.
He has one copy, right?
He has one copy, yeah. It's actually good in this matchup, I think, because people, like in Thoughtseize, Inquisition Inquisition you, and then you end up with a draw too. I think that's good. I think Saddle the Wreckage isn't great in this matchup because it's so easy for the opponent to play around it. Like, they're going to see your hand all the time, and they're just... If they ever duress or Thoughtseize or Inquisition you and see a Saddle the Wreckage, it gives them... Like, they have a lot of ways to deal with it. So they don't have to walk into it, and it kind of just buys you a little bit of time, but I don't think it's really what you were looking for. But again, it's not bad.
Sure.
You know, Timely Reinforcements isn't great either, though you'll definitely never gain 6 life off of it, but sometimes it's just a couple of chump blockers. There's nothing that is outrageously bad, I think, and nothing that is outrageously good other than the Celestial Purge. But just going back to your argument, you said the blue-white alphabetical order, but you call it blue-black, right?
I do.
It's not alphabetical.
Okay, so I just put it in the order of best color first. Yeah, I do. You're right. I didn't think about that. Luis is going to take a mulligan here on what was ultimately a pretty slow hand with Jace the Mind Sculptor and Terminus in his opener. I think he was a little concerned about Emmanuel Gerschenson having too much action early, or maybe a Thoughtseize putting that hand into oblivion. So he's going to go ahead and ship it back. Gerschenson's kept his hand, though.
Yeah, mulliganing against Thoughtseize decks is always tricky because you think, well, I have this hand, and then if they Thoughtseize this spell, my hand does nothing. But at the same time, you're already assuming to have a Thoughtseize, so you're mulliganing. Now you have only 6 cards. Like, is your 6 really going to be better against a Thoughtseize? Like, so I think against decks like this, you do tend to mulligan more conservatively. Like, you keep hands that you wouldn't normally, but also, obviously, there are some that you can't keep, even if you're against the Thoughtseize.
Yeah, it's just tough. Like, if his first plays were a 4-drop and then a 6-drop, that's a tough sell, though I didn't see all of the cards. But
yeah, the card he's really looking for in his opening hand, I think there are 2. There are Ancestral Vision and Search for Escanta. Vision is the most important one, because you play a turn 1 Vision, you mitigate all this card that your opponent plays basically for the rest of the game. He is on the draw, so his opponent does have the chance to discard it, but I think that is the card he's looking for the most in his Scry, mainly. If he keeps and scries into an Ancestral Vision, he's going to be thrilled.
Looks like Luis blew a tire there, had to replace one of his sleeves. Whoa.
Well,
we saw 2 rest in pieces there in his opener. Oh,
okay,
boy. It looks like he loves the rest in peace. He has...
I feel like I was very wrong and very right at the same time.
Okay, so I understand the wrong part. You need to explain to me the very right part.
Oh, they're horrible.
Multiple?
He drew all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised he kept, to be honest.
I mean...
3 rest in peace? Is a 5 not better than that?
I don't know. You're kind of in a spot where you're hoping the resting piece is going to win you the game here. Like, you're hoping you play a resting piece.
I think the second and the third one might lose him the game here.
Oh, that's likely. But
well, if I think I'm likely to lose the game, I might go to 5 if I thought it might be a little better. 3 rest in peace? Like, what?
The thing is that
how does he win?
I think he thinks the only way I win this game is if my resting piece is worth many, many cards from my opponent, at which point, like, I would rather have access to a lot of them than to have access to none, because if I go to 5 cards and have none, then I'm not going to win.
Also, that hand pretty good against Thoughtseize, right?
Yes, as most bad hands tend to be.
Yes, indeed.
It's like having a bad card in your main deck, and you're like, well, this card is really good for sideboarding.
Yeah, I can discard.
It always comes out. Yeah, it's good against Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah.
It's always the first card to go.
Yeah, that logic doesn't hold up very well, does it?
I mean, it is. So it is the kind of thing that, you know, if you think Resting Piece is really important and you think it is the card they would target with Thoughtseize, then having multiples isn't bad.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I don't. It's different styles, I think. Also, I know the lists that I'm looking at. I know there's no Qualigans command. So it's a lot more complicated to have an objective opinion in this. I certainly wouldn't bring in 3 myself, but I can understand why he would, and might even have a 4th.
Gerschenson's going to fire off a couple of Thought Scours. He's decided just to aim them at Salvato because, well, he might be able to deck him.
Yeah, and, you know, there's no reason to do it on yourself. What if you mill your swamp, right? It's the only basic you have left.
Yeah, great point.
Now, that is another card that is sort of stopped by Resting Piece. You know, part of it is, at least. And I'm looking at Emmanuel Gerschenson's sideboard. He has 2 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster, which is a card that I have never seen in Grixis Death Shadow. I've seen a lot in Jund.
That's cool.
It is really good in this matchup. Really, really strong.
Seriously.
It basically demands a sweeper by itself, or you win the game in like 3 turns.
Yeah, it's one of the quickest clocks you can get out of one card. Goblin Rabblemaster. By the way, Liliana the Last Hope. Major problem here for Salvato, as her ultimate ends up popping up pretty quickly. Comes down on 3 loyalty, goes to 4 immediately. Untap up to 5, and all of a sudden, Salvato's got to start sweating that ultimate, and that's going to be extraordinarily difficult for him to beat.
Yeah, now we've turned this game into, like, Emmanuel's hand, he didn't really do anything.
Right.
Other than playing that Liliana.
Yeah.
So I assume he has to have some sort of counter spell in hand. And we're turning this game into a mini game of, can Luis Salvato get rid of that Liliana before he gets to 7 counters? Because if he does get to 7, he's probably not going to win. Oh, there it is.
Well, now he's hitting from 2 different angles here, PV. He's got the Goblin Rabblemaster, and he has Liliana the Last Hope going. The good news for Salvato is he has the answer for the Rabblemaster right away. So no 1/1 Goblin token at all from Gerschenson's side of the battlefield, but he still is staring down Liliana, who's going to go to 5 loyalty now. And he's got to find an answer pretty quickly here, just a few more turns before she goes ultimate. And there's a Death Shadow too, so Salvato really has his hands full here. Emmanuel Gerschenson applying pressure across the board.
Yeah, I think Luis Salvato has Cryptic Command in hand, but doesn't currently have 3 blue mana. So now he will have 3 blue mana.
Trying to plan ahead a little bit to make sure that he has that mana available before Liliana gets to ultimate range so he can return that to hand if he needs to. Set that plan back many, many turns. Still, there's a Death Shadow on the battlefield now too, so he's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, also, Salvato does have a Snapcaster in hand, which can potentially get 1 attack in Liliana before it dies to Liliana. It's not going to it's not going to flash back anything because all of that is exiled.
Right,
So
right.
he actually has 2 exile piles. But
Collective Brutality now from Gerschenson. Boy, he did take a little ways to get the motor running here, but now he's firing on all cylinders, and there goes that Cryptic Command. So that plan's now out.
yeah, we could realistically see just not an attack by the Death Shadow here.
Just to protect Liliana.
Yeah. I think that's honestly what we should see. Liliana's going to ultimate in 2 turns. Death
Yeah.
Shadow is only a 2/2. Like, the clock is not that relevant. Well, there is a fetch land in there, so it could become a 5/5, which is actually a more relevant clock.
Mhm.
But and I believe he has a dismembering hand, so he could dismember the Snapcaster if he tries to attack Liliana, but then he might get hit by Colonnade.
Yeah, he does have to be careful, doesn't he? It's down to 8.
Yeah, and he could just let the Snapcaster happen. All the Snapcaster is going to do is delay Liliana a little bit, right? It's just going to die to Liliana the very next turn.
Yeah, to the plus ability. There he is, Snapcaster Mage. Of course, no targets, no graveyard. That rests in peace. Perhaps not being the dominant sideboard card that you'd hope it would be, but it's doing something. In this case, something bad for Luis.
Yeah, it's certainly doing something for someone.
Yes, it is. Gerschenson has his own copy of Snapcaster Mage, and he's going to just trade them off
Yeah, though
and maintain that clock with it. Go ahead.
No, to be fair, if the rest of peace wasn't there, then I think Emmanuel Gerson would have won this game already.
Okay.
The Liliana, he has access to more lands to go with the Snapcaster, but the fact that he has 3 of them, then you would rather they be 3 of anything else.
Right.
Basically. But 1 resting piece and 2 good cards would be good in that spot, I think.
Okay. Yeah, but unfortunately, Salvato's hand is just resting pieces.
Oh yeah.
And when he looks down and sees that, he might be reading that quite literally here, as he could be dead very soon. Down to 12 with Liliana on 6 going to 7 this turn.
Yeah, so basically he has to, both the threats will be, quote, lethal the very next turn. So he has to draw Cryptic Command, and then he can tap the Death Shadow and bounce the Liliana on Emmanuel's upkeep. That's the only thing that can happen for him, I think. Because the Death Shadow is going to, everything is going to be lethal here.
Salvato down to 7. Liliana on 7 loyalty. And that's an island off the top for Luis Salvato. I don't think there's much he can do here.
No,
he has a Colonnade.
Yeah, he could activate Colonnade to block the Death Shadow, but
then the ultimate happens.
Ultimate happens.
Okay.
You don't die immediately, but I don't see how you beat an ultimate. He does have. The thing is that you don't just have to beat the ultimate; you also have to beat the lethal Death Shadow that is in play.
Right, because it is a chump block from the Colonnade.
Yeah.
So he's going to do that, but not a good situation here. Gerschenson's going to crack that fetch to make sure that this Death Shadow, which is currently sitting at 5/5, gets up to 7 so that it's a lethal attack.
Yeah, and he did that before he drew because he knew the top card for Mission Bubble, I believe.
Yes, he did indeed. He decided he didn't want it, apparently.
All right, that's a stubborn denial, so that is...
GG.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything looking good for Gerschenson. And there it is, the Dismember to finish things off. And Emmanuel Gerschenson takes care of number 1 in the world, Luis Salvato, in 2 clean games there. His game plan looked pretty strong. A little bit of a struggle there from Salvato in game 2 with that opening hand, mulliganing, and then ultimately keeping a hand with 3 rest in peace that didn't have enough, shockingly, didn't have enough action by the time we got to the end of the game. And Gerschenson was able to take it down with his deck from 2 years ago style deck, And again, that's one of the great things about Modern, right, is that these decks kind of rotate through. And even if you haven't seen a deck in a while, it might be time for it to come back. You should always keep your eye on those type of lists. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have Time Walk Magic here from Atlanta. Don't go anywhere. Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Grand Prix Atlanta. That's Paulo Vitor, Dominic Rosa, and Marshall Sutcliffe. Thanks so much for coming along. We're covering Modern today, and we've got Time Walk Magic lined up for you here. We're going to be jumping right back into that once it's ready. About halfway through the day here on day one. And, okay, they're ready now. Let's head on down for Time Walk here for round number 4. All right, Seth Manfield, the other number 1 player in the world, PV.
That's weird.
Currently tied. And he's playing against Bernardo Santos, who's on humans. And what has Seth brought to the table? Oh, look at this. He's on KCI. Interesting.
Yeah, and humans versus KCI is probably the matchup that is the most polarized depending on who you ask. If you ask humans players, they're like, yeah, never lose to KCI. And if you ask KCI players, like, yeah, humans is so easy. And you're wondering, who are those people beating? Right?
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, I personally think it's a little on the KCI side, even though it doesn't look like it should be. Because humans has a fast clock and a lot of disruption. But I think it's in KCI's favor exactly because of this. Engineered Explosives is such a powerful card. You can just play it on 2, and then you get to kill all the hate airs and stop, your opponent's assault.
By the way, really funny to see here. Seth puts it on 2. There's nothing on 2 on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it goes. And here, too, relatively new decks, too. And it's funny, you were talking about how Grixis Dash Shadow was this deck from 2 years ago. The deck his opponent was playing blue-white. That's from 20 years ago.
That's true.
Right? I remember it was one of the first decks that I saw in competitive. It was like Counterpost. And that's just the same deck. It hasn't changed at all. So, but those two are kind of new.
All right, looks like Militia Bugler's going to get into the red zone here after it got copied. And are we going to see this freebooter? No. Meddling Mage.
Yeah, that will slow down the, otherwise Seth can just play an Ironworks the very next turn and win the game.
Do you just name Ironworks with it?
Oh, yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah.
Given that Engineered Explosives is already in play, that's the only other card that I would consider naming, I think. Ooh, there's extra value from the Engineered Explosives, getting rid of the Ichor Wellspring now.
Value for Seth.
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear.
I mean, that depends. If he has Ironworks, it's not that great, but if he's looking for it, then it's value. Yeah, now Bernardo is in a spot where, he can't really commit more 2-drops to the board, but
he's committed the 1-2 drop that Seth Manfield will have to use that Engineered Explosives on at some point if he wants to combo off.
Yeah, exactly.
The question is, can Santos keep the pressure up in the meantime and make really force Seth Manfield to use that maybe before he'd like to?
Well, he really wants to present a 2-turn clock here. Right now he has 6 damage, so that's not enough. It's going to be pretty hard to present a 2-turn clock here because he has another Meddling Mage in hand. So if he can make it so that if Seth here in this spot has the Ironworks and the Scrapfiller in hand, I believe he's going to win the game already. Right?
Okay.
There's not much that Bernardo can do to stop that. So the game plan for Bernardo has to be, I have to force Seth to use these explosives in combat next turn so that post-combat I can play my other Meddling Mage. That is how he wins this game. Other than Seth just completely never finding an Ironworks, of course, which is a valid win condition. And right now he's still short. He has 8, but if he draws Salah's Lieutenant of that, then that will accomplish what he wants. Or Mantis Rider, that is also 11, but then he needs a land to play the Meddling Mage post-combat. So I think, he can't get Mantis Rider, sorry. That doesn't work.
Well, he's going to have to settle for a Noble Hierarch here.
Yeah, so he has to draw Mantis Rider or Tyler's Lieutenant here.
And right. This is a big turn sequence here. If Seth goes, okay, use Engineered Explosives and has the KCI, he could be in a position to win the game. If he doesn't do that here, that means that line of play is not going to be available to him, at least for this turn cycle. and he'd have to survive another combat step from Bernard.
Yeah, he does get to draw. The fact that he hasn't done it immediately probably means he doesn't have the KCI in hand.
Right.
But he does get to draw a lot of cards if he wants to.
So from the Ichor Wellspring, his draw step. Let's see if he finds it. Clark-Klein Ironworks is the card he wants to see.
Yeah, in this spot, he could play Ironworks and still lose. But if he has Ironworks and other things, then he's probably very likely to win. An alternative is also playing another Explosive Zone 2, which would buy a turn, or even an Explosive Zone 3, which would buy a lot of time but still get him disrupted.
He's going to crack Terrarion. Did he find it?
Doesn't look like it. Oh, hey, actually, it does look like he did. But does he have enough to go on right now? Like, even if he just sacks the 2 artifacts and plays a Scrap Drawer, he has 1 mana left and no other artifacts. So he's kind of spread himself thin here trying to find his Ironwork.
But you were right. He does, in fact, have it. So he gets to play it and not have to worry about that Meddling Mage sequence that you talked about from Bernardo. The problem here is he could just die. Right? He's not facing lethal at the moment, but it wouldn't take much to change that. Athalia's Lieutenant would just end it.
Yeah, Athalia's Lieutenant would just be lethal. He did find an Explosives, so that is 2 more mana. It doesn't look like he has Crab Trawler.
Well, he's going to churn through a few cards here. Generating mana, he's up to 4. Make it 3. Sack a Sphere.
He's in a tough spot. I think it's extremely unlikely he wins this turn. But he could try to continue. Has a Mind Stone, could draw a card off of that, but then he'll have 1 mana left and lose his Opal. So he probably has to hope he doesn't die.
Just has to hope, huh?
Then we'll probably see from Bernardo a turn that is Freebooter plus Meddling Mage. Yeah, I think he should. Well, he has a green mana? Okay. But I think he should probably just play Mind Stone and pass. No, he does know what Bernardo. What does he know for those buglers? I don't know if he knows about the Meddling Mage.
I think he found an image in a mage.
But he has 3.
Mm-hmm.
So why did he find? Oh, he found a Hierarch.
Hierarch with the last one. That's
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, depending on what Seth knows, maybe he thinks, well, I'm not going to win if I let my opponent just play a Meddling Mage here, so I have to go for it. But I think it just has to pass. It's only Lieutenant that kills him. Like, nothing else does. Mantis Rider doesn't.
Santos patiently waiting for Seth to finish his actions here. As am I.
Yes, we are anxiously waiting. Oh, he can play a land? I didn't know he could play a land this turn.
I thought he played a forest this turn. Did he not? Maybe he didn't. Well, I guess he gets to play it. So Buried Ruin is the play. And he passes the turn back to Santos.
Yeah, with KCI, you always want to not make your land drop until you have to, because you have so many utility lands, like Inventor's Fair, Buried Ruins, that during your combo, you just draw, through then, you're going to find one for sure. All
right, back in the hands of Santos here. He's facing down Manfield on 11 life. He's got this Kite sail freebooter to start things off, and that's a whiff. Nothing there, just 3 lands left in hand for Manfield. So good news and bad news for Santos. Bad news is he whiffed. The good news is he's got nothing.
Yeah, so what's this Meddling Mage going to be on? He could name Ichor Wellspring, which is the card that Seth would want to regrow with the Bird Ruins, but you can just get a Star or a Terrarian instead, so you're not accomplishing that much.
There's nothing obvious, right? There's no card that just shuts off Manfield. Like, could you name...
Scrap Trawler is the obvious one if you want to shut off the combo, but... Like, he has the Bird Ruins and he has the Explosives, so all it will do is make him pay a little more mana, but, I mean, I think that's fine. He has to use the ruins on the explosives or find another one. That's probably what I would name Scrap Trawler. I think that's better than naming something that might be recurred.
Okay. In for 6 is Santos. So Manfield down to 5, and he'll only have one more turn to go. So Santos' job now is to slow down Manfield as much as possible, try to make sure that he can't lose outright on the next turn, or make it so that Seth has to use up too much mana to try to clear this board away, leaving him with enough threats to still apply pressure.
Yeah, I believe Seth is on 5 life now, so an Engineered Explosives on 3 actually would just buy him another turn.
Yeah, by 1 life point.
Yeah. But then that assumes Santos has no Mantis Rider, no Phantasmal Image, no Noble Heroic, and no Tireless Lieutenant. We know he doesn't have Lieutenant because Seth would have died.
Right.
But Seth should probably sack that Mind Stone. But he has plenty of mana. When you have KCI, the most constraining resource is usually cards and not mana. You generate so much mana on your combo turns. So usually you just want to, when you have the chance to spend mana to draw cards, you should do that. He found a Mirror Retriever. And an Ichor Wellspring, so that's pretty good.
Wow.
Each Wellspring is just 2 free cards, and then the Mirror Retriever is the same.
Looks like he's going to kick things off with the Wellspring. Big turn here for Manfield. He's on 5, facing down easily lethal. He's got a lot of work to do.
It's another Retriever. So drawing those Retrievers is a relief, and it's also, it's not what you want really, but also it works. So I guess we don't know what it's named, but and it's a time walk match, so we can't really ask. But I'm gonna assume it's Scrap Trawler.
That's what I would assume as well.
Yeah. Unless Bernardo is a psychic, and then he named Mirror Retriever. So actually, I like Seth's odds here. Like all he has going to draw a lot of cards here, and he has access to that Explosives for 2 already, because he has Mirror Retrievers and Void Ruin. So all he has to do is actually find the Scrap Trawler. Like he has plenty of mana, plenty of cards.
Retriever gets back the Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, just has to get rid of that Mind Stone before he pops the Explosives.
Puts Explosives on 2. 3 mana floating currently.
Yeah, so now he gets to sack the Explosives, then he gets to play Mirror Retriever, and is that Scrap Trawler in hand? Oh, I think he has it in hand already. Okay. So I think he's doing just fine.
Okay, there goes Engineered Explosives, putting Meddling Mage in the graveyard and clearing the way for anything in Seth Manfield's hand. And there's a Scrap Trawler.
Yeah, and I think Seth is going to win.
Wow.
I think he has it pretty locked up.
Down to 5 life. Facing quite a board, but Bernardo never really found any of those explosive draws. You know, the Thalia's Lieutenant never showed up and just slammed the door on this game. And may have given Seth Manfield just that one extra turn. I'll tell you, those Militia Buglers were really slow.
Yeah, and Seth's combo here is about the simplest combo you can have with KCI, which is 2 Mirror Retrievers and a Scrap Trawler. And that means each Mir Retriever pays for itself and returns the other Mir Retriever, and then also returns a 1 mana card because of Scrap Trawler. So it's pretty easy to go infinite on both mana and on cards with
Wow.
this.
Seth Manfield pulls that one out the last second and wins game number 1. We're in game number 2 now. Bernardo starts things off a little more aggressively here. He's got Champion of the Parish to kick it off, but there's a Pyrite Spellbomb, so it may not be long for this world.
Yeah, Pirate Spellbomb, one of the reasons that I think this matchup's actually good for Ironworks. Like when you have a card that just works with your deck and is your win condition and also just kills a hate there, then that's pretty good.
Woo, look at this start.
Yeah, it's
Double Champion of the Parish with a Noble Hierarch.
No, it's not a slow start.
5 power out already.
Seth has Fire Spout in his deck, but that's going to be too late for at least one of the champions.
Yeah, and possibly both.
Yeah.
Let's see what Santos can do here. This curve out situation looking very good for him.
And Seth doesn't even have
This
colored
isn't a
mana.
lieutenant, is it? Okay, it's not. It's a Kite Sail freebooter.
Seth's thinking? Oh, okay.
Oh,
That makes sense.
he was
I like
doing that thinking. Interesting. So super fast start for Bernard Santos is fast enough that Seth didn't even want to show him his hand and would prefer to concede.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good play. Obviously, I don't know why he was hiding because we couldn't see his hand. But he was not going to win that game. The creatures were too big. He didn't even have colored mana in play.
So what are the strategic implications there? Just hiding information?
Yeah, basically. Well, saving time also because...
That is relevant.
Yeah, Seth isn't the fastest player. They do have a ton of time there. And once Seth gets going, it doesn't matter how much time is left on the clock because he wins on the same turn. So I don't think saving time is really a big consideration there. But yeah, just hiding information. You know, his opponent doesn't know he has Fire Spout in his deck. That is a card that they could potentially play around. Or like sometimes people bring in Psy Master Top 3s against humans, and maybe you don't want them to know that you brought it, right? I don't think it's that great against humans, but it does buy you a lot of time. Look at the picture of Fire Spout. It's kind of great. I had never paid attention to it.
What is that a goblin in the front?
I think so.
Getting burned?
Well,
Wow.
kinda.
Wow. All right. That is kind of cool now that you mention it.
It's just a very weird goblin.
Yeah. It's a Shadowmoor goblin. They're weird. Well, Ancient Stirrings for Seth Manfield. Of course, it's one of the reasons to play this deck. It's one of the reasons the deck exists.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can... I think it's literally impossible to miss in KCI. It's the only card that it doesn't hit our other Ancient Stirrings, and there's only 3 more.
Right.
So...
Champion of the Parish, turn 1 from Bernardo. Okay. Fair.
you know...
Not as explosive, but...
A B minus.
Yeah. Speaking of explosives, there's 2 in hand here
Ooh.
for Manfield, so Bernardo really can't deal with both, and is at the Fire Spout there too. Whew. Sweeper City there for Manfield.
Yeah, now the hope from Bernardo is that he gets to, outgrow the Champion of the Parish out of the Fire Spout range, but still the second explosives can deal with it.
Eventually, I mean, look at Seth's mana base here.
Oh, yeah. It's
Pair of
not
Darksteel
it's not
Citadels.
the prettiest. He does have a star, so he gets to cast 1
Yes.
at least, or on 1. Yeah, taking the Fire Spot here, I think the clear choice from Bernardo because it's the one card that deals with both his creatures.
Right.
Assuming Seth actually drew a lead because he would need both red and green mana for this.
That's true.
Yeah, now Seth is in a weird predicament. Like, if he sacks that star for a color land and doesn't find another color source, he can play an Explosive Zone 1, but then he's very far from playing Explosive Zone 2. But also, he can't just sit back, I don't think. So I think you have to crack it and play Explosives for 1.
Just to kill the champion.
I think so.
Yeah, it does feel like that's the case.
I mean, you don't have to use it immediately, but then you're really far from playing the Explosive Zone 2.
Yeah, you've
which
set
is what
yourself
you
back
really want to do.
Another color.
So color mana hasn't been very kind to Seth Manfield in this game and the previous game. which is not that common with case. You do have a lot of colorless sources, but you need very little colored mana overall. So having stars, spheres, terrariums, moxes is usually enough to cast anything. Now there's a blocker.
Scrap Trawler hits the battlefield here for Manfield before he passes the turn back to Bernardo.
Ooh, Bernardo, who... Does he have a third land? Oh, he does.
He does indeed.
That's the Nicol Bolas Plains.
Mm-hmm.
So the question for him is, does he want to trade Champion of the Parry for Scrap Trawler? I think the answer is yes. I think, even if it will outgrow it in one turn, getting rid of that Scrap Trawler is so good for you. And you already know your opponent has 2 explosives. So, yeah, I would probably just offer the trade here after playing whatever it is that I would play. And I think Seth might just take it.
Bernardo, I think he drew Kumbal for the turn.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Is that a card he'd bring in?
Oh, yeah, it's really good.
Would you like that card against a combo deck?
I love that card. Also against other things, too. It's really good against Berg. Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite cards from the human sideboard. He only has 1, but... Wow, so he does not offer the trade.
He does not. Instead, he's going to get rowdy in the air. He's going to play a Mana Strider and get in with the Freebooter and the Mana Strider before passing the turn back to Manfield. He leaves the Champion of the Parish home. And I think he was going along that line of thinking that you were talking about before, where he says, well, next turn, I'll be able to just attack with this thing.
Yeah, and then he'll potentially force a chump block.
Right.
He won't force it, but...
This is a little riskier here from Santos.
Well, the thing is that if Seth has everything, Seth can just take it, right? Mm-hmm. And then kill you anyway.
Yep.
So it's not like you can force Seth to block. But you might be in a scenario where Seth doesn't have quite everything, but could draw into everything, and then Seth, not knowing what he's going to find, will just block.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complicated situation. I don't really... It's hard to say what is right here. It could be right for him to not attack, but also right for Saf to not block if he does attack, which is kind of weird from a zero-sum game.
Yes, it is. But that's where that information disparity comes in. All right, so Seth is going to crack a star to get 1 mana of a color, and he's going to use that for explosives, and he's just going to go ahead and kill. He's going to get in the red zone.
Get in there.
Oh, I love it. Scrap Trawler beatdown. You can't figure like this is going to go well for Seth long term, though. Bernardo's deck is well suited for this type of situation.
Yeah, it is a bit better at attacking than the KCI deck.
Just slightly better. Ooh, another Mana Strider off the top of the library. And, if I'm Bernardo, I'm looking over at Seth's battlefield. He has no access to colored mana at all here.
Yeah, I think Bernardo has to play Campbell here. Like, it is tempting to play Mantis Rider as a 2-turn clock, but you could just die. Like, Seth could easily play Land, Ironworks, and other things.
Okay.
Like, he knows an Explosives in Seth's hand. I think that's the card he knows. That's it. So I think playing Combo is the safer play. And it's still going to be lethal if Seth casts 2 spells. So...
Okay. So Kumbal is going to hit the battlefield.
Yeah. So if Seth casts 1 spell, it's effectively lethal, because then that means Seth cannot cast another spell.
Right.
And then he can't win.
So Kumbal doing really good work here, preventing Seth from comboing off, or even really doing much of anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's not a winning play.
Santos points to Kumbal and says, drain you for 2.
Yeah, and now Bernardo has to play Mantis Rider and attack, and that will be it. Seth will be at 1 life and unable to cast a non-creature spell. Oh, or he can play that.
Yeah, it all works out fine here
Which
from
is,
Santos, and that's going to do it. Seth Manfield extends a hand, and that is Bernardo Santos. Wow, both of our number 1s taking a loss here in their first round of the tournament. Kind of surprising, but Modern is a kind of a Wild West type format, and sometimes that can happen. You never know what matchup you're going to be facing down on any given round. We're actually going to be bringing you more Time Walk Magic in just a minute here. They're getting it set up for us now. I think from maybe from Brad Nelson's table, or it could be Reed Duke. They were both in the feature match area this round. And it is, in fact, Brad Nelson's table. He was playing against Joseph Ambrosio. Let's see what these guys are on. I'm always curious to see what Brad brings to any tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like he's on Snapcaster Mages and Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. So...
different from what we've seen already.
Yeah, I also see 3 Lightning Bolt and 3 Lightning Helix in the deck, so he's on 3 colors.
3 Electrolytes. That's a lot of Electrolytes.
It is. Boy, I played a deck like this a long time ago, much earlier in Modern.
Yeah, I played it at the PT, the last PT.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a sweet deck.
I did.
But I'm a little surprised to see it here. Oh, look, he has 2 of your favorite.
Ooh, 2 Hieroglyphic Illumination. Yeah.
Yeah, how many ops is he playing? 0. Oh, man, he loves it. He loves it. All right, let's head down. It's time for a little more Time Walk magic here for round number 4. Welcome back to Time Walk. Brad Nelson versus Joe Ambrosio. We're coming into game number 2. And Joe's on Obson Company.
Yeah, and this Hieroglyphic Illumination thing, it's so weird because it's the kind of thing that if I think about it, it seems so bad. And then, logically speaking, all my years of Magic lead me to believe that this card is bad. Mm-hmm. But also, all my years of Magic lead me to believe that Brad Nelson's good, Luis Carfarga's good, Ben Stark's good. So, are they all wrong? And I'm right? It's very unlikely.
Which, with every name you add, it becomes less likely.
Yeah, but at the same time, give me the... I don't see it. I mean, I understand the logic, but I just don't see it. It's very interesting. So if I had to play a Jeskai deck right now, what should I do? Right? Should I just trust those people? Or should I just do what I think is right, even though, I don't know, it's really complicated.
I mean, you are who you are. You have an opinion that matters too.
I do. But I'm only one.
Actually, I have a good shortcut for you.
What?
Just add up top 8s.
Oh.
So in this case, it's actually probably pretty close. But if we throw Luis Scott Vargas in, it tips the scales, and you should be playing Hieroglyphic Illumination.
Yeah, but at the same time,
now if you can convince another Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah,
on your
John
side,
Finkel?
Yeah, it would go. Oh well, John Finkel, you're not. If you two agree, yeah, well, you two.
Yeah, but also think does Brad think Hieroglyphic Illumination is good, or is he just playing it because Luis and Van played it?
Oh yes,
that point. So it's
now you're getting into the real nitty gritty on the pro community and herd mentality and that whole thing.
Yeah, I think I would play it at this point because they've played the deck more than I have, but. Yeah, this is one of the... So, Absent Company is one of the best matchups for Jeskai, I think. It's one of the matchups where you really get paid off by being Jeskai as opposed to Blue Eye. Mm-hmm. Because the fact that you exile everything from Terminus, which... Not exile, put it on the bottom, which is very relevant against a deck like Dredge or Hollow One, doesn't really come into play here. There are some graveyard synergies, but it's not the thing that really matters. And then you get to snipe the utility creatures without them having to attack. Mm-hmm. Like the Blue Eye deck, it only has 4 paths, and now it has a Nous, the Condemned, and then it has the Sweepers. But being able to Bolt and Helix, and especially Electrolyze, cards like Devoted Druid and Duskwatch Recruiter, that card is a nightmare for a Blue Eye deck if you don't draw exactly Path to Exile. But it is, in this matchup, it's really, really good to be red.
Oh, it's good to be Brad. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, Red. Well, also Brad.
Yeah, I'm kind of piggybacking. Looks like we're going to speed things up a little here, as we're getting kind of up against the next round here, heading back into live Magic. Looks like we're going to see a transformation.
Yeah.
Into a Howler.
Which is actually what you want, I think, as Jeskai.
Think so. Yeah, because it still dies to Bolt.
You don't want your opponent accumulating all those extra cards.
Yeah, that's true. And you have answers for a 3/3.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you have a Supreme Verdict in your hand, for example, you don't care that creatures are cheaper. You just let your opponent cast it. But not this one.
This one demands an answer.
Yeah.
So Brad's going to respond by Snapcastering a Lightning Bolt to kill the Devoted Druid.
Yeah, and that will flip the Duskwatch Recruiter back.
Yes, it will.
Well, that's a supreme verdict I've ever seen.
You know, kidding. Throws away a Snapcaster Mage for 3 damage. And there's almost no way that Brad Nelson doesn't have a sweeper after making that play. Ambrosio sees right in on the wall, scoops him up, puts him in the graveyard, and we're back to business. He's got to rebuild now. And he's got a walking ballista.
Yeah, that's
for
not
2
a great
counters.
rebuilding.
No, really not against Brad. And the type of deck that he's brought to the battlefield here. He's going to attack for 2 as Joseph. And Brad looks like he's thinking about if he wants to fire off a Path to Exile, and he decides absolutely.
Yep, should do for 1. I guess got
Looks
my
like he was actually considering. Yeah, he actually let the Path to Exile resolve there just to change 1 damage on Brad into a land on the battlefield instead.
Oh yeah, that's definitely worth it.
Makes
Especially
sense.
with Horizon Cannon. And he has 2 cards of Kali in hand. I'm surprised he even attacked.
Mm.
I guess he wants to court for another Duskwatch Recruiter, maybe? I would think he would want something like an Eternal Witness in a spot like this.
Oh, yeah,
just
get
to
that
add
chain
some
rolling.
pressure and, yeah, get something. But if he's going to court for 2, I think that will probably just be Duskwatch Recruiter. I think that's the best you can do.
Gives you a place to put all this extra mana. But Brad looks like he's got an answer. He's going to Logic Knot. Wow. Court of Calling goes bye-bye. Birds of Paradise. Oh, he's going to pass a turn back again.
Yeah, he's just going to try again at the end of the turn.
But that gives Brad an extra draw step and lets him have mana available that he didn't have. He was tapped down to 2 before. And look at this. Cryptic Command punishes Joseph there.
Yeah. I think Joseph thought, like, well, I'm not even going to get anything great anyway. So if my opponent wants to counter it, then whatever. I think if it was a collected company, we would probably have seen it, immediately.
Main faced.
But still, like, getting Eternal Witness, maybe. He also has Rona's, the Indomitable, Shalai Voice of Plenty that he could get.
He's got some stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, today has been Birds of Paradise Day here in the booth for Paulo and I.
Oh, yeah.
Birds got a little offended that we put it down so much in comparison to Noble Hierarch, and it keeps showing up in the feature match area in revolt.
Yeah, and Brad is just in firm control of this game here. It's very... Ooh, there it is! There it is!
There's your Hieroglyphic Illumination. 4 mana, draw a couple cards.
Yeah.
Whoop. Here's a really good card for Modern, though. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, with that untap ability is absolutely devastating. It turns out when you pair it with super powerful options like 2 mana counter spells and 2 mana removal spells or less.
Yeah, and that card just really does everything for that deck.
Yep.
It was really surprising to see people say that it was better than Jace.
Yes, I saw that too, and I thought that was shocking. But you can see it when you actually play it out.
Yeah.
How well it works with the rest of the deck.
Because in the end, it's just cheaper.
Yes.
Right? If you have access to 5 mana, well, you can play it and you can counter something or play it and kill something.
That's right.
And with Jace, you can't.
Right. You're so compelled to run Jace out as soon as you possibly can. By the way, it looks like double removal spells for Brad, although
I think it's just
not quite
face.
enough. Yeah, it's just it's only 4 damage.
Yeah, he can Snapcaster Helix and then play.
Yeah, sure. He's got plenty.
Electrolyze.
Nice try, Joseph.
Helix the bird?
5, and that is going to do it. Brad Nelson wins the match 2-0 with Jeskai control. So he's got off to a good start here, 4-0. And somehow, some way, Paulo, we ended up seeing Birds of Paradise versus Hieroglyphic Illumination down in the feature match area.
Neil dual decks.
Yeah, so we'll see how that matchup goes throughout the rest of the day. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll be back to live Magic here from Atlanta. Don't go anywhere.